G'day legends, and let's do this properly. I'm going to be reviewing the movie, The Smashing Machine, an MMA movie. Now, we just got to stop right here because I know there's a lot of people that jump into these videos pretty much every day, and we're very used to being in our niche little sport of MMA, but I think we have to realize that when you're making a video about a movie and it's a movie review video, this video might pump out to a completely different audience. So there might be new people here watching this video. So if you are new around here, welcome. My name is Dougie. I make MMA content every single day, and this is a MMA related movie, so I figured I'd make a video about the movie. However, I want to preface this with, I am not a movie reviewer. I don't review movies. I review pay-per-views, but they're more sporting events. They're not movies. So even though I will be reviewing The Smashing Machine, it's probably not going to be the best movie review you've ever seen in your life. It's going to be pretty poorly done. I mean, I went out, I saw it last night, I took some notes on my phone afterwards. This is what I think of the movie. Let us get into it, shall we? So straight away, as an MMA fan, you've probably seen the documentary, The Smashing Machine. If you haven't seen the documentary of The Smashing Machine, this is essentially a shot-for-shot version of that documentary. And the funny thing about The Smashing Machine is, it was started being recorded at the start of Mark Kerr's career, right? And Mark Kerr's career, he was undefeated, he was an absolute phenom, so they decided to start recording the documentary. However, Mark Kerr's career never really went on to be this phenomenal career, so it's a documentary of just a regular MMA fighter. So it has a very, very weird story arc, not what you would imagine for a documentary about a champion mixed martial artist, which makes it a very odd and very niche documentary in a very niche sport. And because of that, we end up getting a very odd and a very niche movie that essentially has no script or has no plot. The movie just sort of meanders on through Mark Kerr's career, and that is really one of the big problems with The Smashing Machine and with this movie in particular. Like, there's going to be spoilers in here, there's going to be absolute spoilers in here, but a movie sort of, has a plot. At some point, what is it? Pavlovich puts his gun on the shelf and you go, ooh, we know there's going to be a gun on the shelf there. And this movie, because it doesn't have that, because it just works in chronological order of a man's sort of mid-career, it just sort of meanders through his life, which is an interesting life, but not exactly a compelling story, a compelling drama that you can tell is going somewhere. Like, for example, a sentence during the early UFC portion of the movie. They show Mark Kerr coming up and, he's in America, so he's fighting at UFC like 14, I believe it is. And that you could have dropped in a sentence there about there's this faraway Japanese organization that it's setting up the biggest tournament in the world, right? And that would put it in the audience's mind that we're heading towards Japan and there is going to be the biggest tournament ever. But you don't hear that the tournament at the end of the movie is the biggest heavyweight greatest fighter tournament in the world till moments before it, right at the end of the movie. If there were whisperings of an organization over in Japan where they're putting on these freak show open weight tournaments and we're going to find the best fighter in the world, just a sentence about it early in the movie, that sort of guides the mind in that direction. But we don't get any of that early in the movie. He's just fighting over in Brazil and then fighting over in America, and the next thing you know, he just appears in Japan. Also, because this movie starts at the beginning of Mark Kerr's career where he's having a great amount of success, it sort of follows him along to where he starts to fall off a little bit, and then halfway through the movie, they really pick up the story of his friend Mark Coleman, and they start to follow Mark Coleman's success and his comeback. Well, if at the start of the movie, now knowing where we are, they didn't know this when they filmed the documentary, but they know this now making the movie. If at the start of the movie there was a little bit of a montage of Mark Kerr having success while Mark Coleman is going through failure, that would actually sort of show that, this is what happens to fighters. It's not all just success, success, success. But instead, we're just introduced to Mark Coleman through a, g'day, how you going? They literally just say hi to each other on an escalator. And you, the audience, if you knew nothing about MMA, don't really know just how down in the dumps Mark Coleman's career is at this point. So the sort of juxtaposition of Mark Kerr being on the ascension and then being on the downfall, and Mark Coleman being on the downfall and then on the ascension, is completely lost to the audience, and that is not in there, which could have been fixed with a really short montage. Like, we're talking about a sentence, a montage, could have fixed these issues. And then there's the relationship with Donna. Like, the relationship with Donna, his girlfriend, sort of just happens. It just happens, where you could have had Donna by his side celebrating his first win in America. Them in love, them going out, them drinking on the night, him popping painkillers, them getting into a little bit of a drunken argument at the end of the night, but then, you know, maybe like a love scene after that, just to show like their relationship is mixed full of these things early on in the movie. Like there is love there, but there's also pain there fueled by drugs and alcohol, and they seem to be constantly playing with that. You know, if that was early in the movie, then that would have a lot more impact towards the end of the movie, where their relationship just sort of apparently stops and then starts again, and then stops and then starts again, without any real like clear beats in it. So it is like the story pacing of this movie is pretty poorly done, and it could have really easily been fixed. And I can forgive the pacing of the documentary being poorly done, because again, you don't know where a person's career is going to go when you start filming them. But you know, now we're 30 years later, you know the story beats of this movie. But it wasn't all bad. Like overall, the movie was great. Like the cinematography was really, really good. Cinematography was really good. Now, who plays? There's so many MMA fighters in this movie, and I was like, this is going to be cringe. Like, you know, when you see people that aren't actors trying to do acting, I was assuming that this was going to be horrible. So Mark Coleman is played by the Bellator light heavyweight and heavyweight champion, former Bellator light heavyweight and heavyweight champion, Ryan Bader. And I expected Ryan Bader to do just a god-awful job at acting. But Ryan Bader actually really holds his own here. Like, there are moments where him and Mark Kerr are at the hospital bed where Mark Kerr is just overdosed. And Mark Coleman handles the scene very, very well. It's not an overly emotional scene, but when you go back and look at the documentary, these are tough, muscle-bound men that are fighters of the world. They're not exactly the kind of guys that are going to be spilling emotion everywhere. And he handles the scene pretty perfectly compared to how the scene actually goes down in real life with real people that aren't trying to over dramatize things. And then throughout the entire journey, like Ryan Bader is playing this husband, this father. He's on the way back in his career after his career has been pretty much halted over in America. And Ryan Bader does just a phenomenal job at it. Also, who I wasn't expecting either to do such a good job was Bas Rutten. Bas Rutten did an amazing job as a Pride announcer, as Mark Kerr's coach, as sort of Mark Kerr's father figure, and not really a father figure, but yeah, coaching him through like with what is going on with his relationship with Dawn. I think I called her Donna earlier. Dawn is the girlfriend's name. But what's so interesting about Bas Rutten in this movie is Bas Rutten is playing himself, going through these motions again with Mark Kerr. And it's very interesting noting that I bet Bas Rutten, if he could have gone back in time, would have begged Mark Kerr to stay back in the gym and to not go back home with Dawn. You know, we had gotten so far, we had won the first round of the tournament. Don't go back with Dawn. I'm sure that haunts Bas Rutten at night. And Bas Rutten delivers that scene perfectly as a man who has the chance to step exactly back into a recreation of that gym with Dwayne Johnson wearing all the makeup of Mark Kerr and relive that moment. And it's really cool to see Bas Rutten actually go back there and do that. Really, really cool. Next, the music. The music is a bit weird. I didn't like the scoring of the music to this. It sort of threw me out of it. And then there's the fight scenes as well. What about the fight scenes as an MMA fan? I think for regular cinema audiences, they're going to really, really enjoy the fight scenes. And you could tell that The Rock and even the fighters, their actual fighters, Alexander Usyk is in this movie, their heavyweight champion of the world. He's in this movie as well. The fight scenes are really, really well done for people that won't be used to watching MMA fights. But to us, hardcore MMA fans, the fight scenes sort of hit the uncanny valley because they do look so real until the shots land, and we're used to seeing real shots land. And then there's, you know, movie noises over the top of the shots and quick cut camera angles because obviously The Rock is not really going to be getting kneed in the head viciously by a giant Russian man. Obviously, The Rock is not going to do that. But we have seen Mark Kerr kneed in the head viciously. We have seen many fighters kneed in the head viciously. We've seen elbows. We've seen proper ground and pound. So for us MMA fans, the fight scenes, to me at least, hit the uncanny valley, where I can tell you're trying to be as real as possible, but I know that this isn't real because I'm so used to seeing real fights. However, for people that aren't used to seeing real fights all the time, I think the fight scenes are absolutely excellent. So overall, I think The Smashing Machine is going to go down as a cult classic for our very small audience. And I'm not surprised that the power of The Rock isn't able to turn this small documentary that was made 30 years ago into a worldwide phenomenon, because the movie just doesn't have that. But you can tell that The Rock is a hardcore MMA fan. And this is sort of what would happen if you were a millionaire, you used to be the biggest star in Hollywood, and you absolutely loved MMA. That's sort of what this movie feels like. The fact that he chose to put real fighters in there, the fact that he chose to keep things so lifelike, like it looks like you are watching an old UFC event, an old Pride event. They've got a man in the ring that looks like young Bruce Buffer, but he's standing there in the background and the camera's just sort of to the side, and they're actually playing Bruce Buffer's original call out. They've brought back Bas Rutten they've brought back the commentary team at Pride to redo the scenes. Everything, every little detail is so perfect for a hardcore MMA fan. It truly is a love letter to us, the MMA fans. And I think us, the MMA fans, need to go and watch this movie and support this movie, because a movie like this is never going to be made again. Not to this level of detail. You could tell that The Rock really, really cares about this story. Whereas a lot of people are going to be like, why was this movie made? Especially since this movie has no grand plot. You know, Mark Kerr is losing at the end and Coleman is the one that is winning at the end. What is so interesting about this movie and why I think it's going to be so good for the MMA community to watch is because the greats like Coleman and the greats like GSP, the greats like Mighty Mount, it's weird to put Coleman up to that level of the greats, but the champions are only the great champions because they've smashed their way through, 99% of the roster. They've smashed their way through 90% of the roster. And most MMA fighters are fighters that have a bit of success at the start of their career, they reach a certain level, and then whether it's drugs, addiction, bad relationships, whatever it is, stops them from hitting that next step up. And you see at the very end of the movie, real Mark Kerr is at the very end of the movie, and he's just a normal guy going about his business. No one knows who he is, and that's the ending of the story for 90% of MMA fighters. They live a normal life, no one recognizes them, they've got a bit of CTE, and they have these crazy memories. And the real Mark Kerr, they're trying to have the camera off to the side, where it's just him going about his business. But you can see on his face, like he's giggling to himself, he's laughing to himself. He cannot believe that a movie with The Rock is being made about him. I think it's just so rare to see a story about the 90% of MMA fighters that will really have no impact on the sport, but they do have a huge impact of the sport, because there wouldn't be there wouldn't be a UFC, there wouldn't be an MMA, there wouldn't be all of the ESPN deal, the Paramount deal. None of that would happen without the 90% of MMA fighters that went in there and got the absolute shit kicked out of them. And it's very nice to see someone that has the amount of power that Rock has in Hollywood to go and make a love letter to the MMA community. So thank you, Rock. Thank you for making the movie. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. It will be a cult classic in our small community, like Pumping Iron was to the bodybuilding community. This is our Pumping Iron. But that's that. If you're an MMA fan, you should absolutely go and see The Smashing Machine. You should support the movie that was made essentially for us. If you're a regular moviegoer, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's not bad. It's not a bad movie. It's not a badly made movie. It's just a movie that just sort of happens. Just Mark Kerr's career sort of happens. Him and his girlfriend love each other, hate each other. She drinks too much. He does too many drugs. She's worried that he's going to leave him once he cleans himself up. You know, it's a classic messy relationship about a standard athlete who was pretty good, but not the best. Story that's been told 1,000 times before, but it's made well and it's told well. Anyway, that's my review of The Smashing Machine. If this is your first time here, g'day, welcome. My name is Dougie. I make an MMA related video pretty much every single day of the week, and I go live all the time as well. If you want to know when I go live, you want to know when a new video drops, hit that notification bell and the subscription button down there. Are you going to see The Smashing Machine? Let me know down there in the comments section. Like the video if you like the video. If you're one of the bloody legends of the channel, one of the guys that are here all the time, you know who you guys are. You're commenting, you're in the lives, you're buying memberships, all that good stuff. Your names are up on the next card to say thank you. And finally, I have finished collating the top 10 pickers in our live stream. Here are the 10 best pickers in our live stream community as well at picking fights. Your names are up on the end card. Until then, wherever you guys are, you have yourselves a great day. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.